It is time. I forgot how many episodes, but we are here. We did a countdown to DC Studios Superman, and we are here finally to review for the movie, the countdown, all the comics you read. It all comes to this review, which we're not all currently here at this moment, but we will be at some point. But regardless, if you haven't already, I appreciate it if you went and do the whole thing where you subscribe. That'd be pretty cool. Just throwing it out there. Really appreciate that. Subscribe. Hit the like button. All that nonsense. But I'm not gonna waste much more time. We have one person here, Javi Trujillo, El Corazon himself. He's here on time. Ooh, nice. Is that your Hot Toys figure?
There is a Hot Toys figure coming sometime between today and the end of the year. But this is the theatrical collector's edition McFarlane. I forget what they call it. Deluxe theatrical edition. So
okay.
It's with 2 hands and some extra base plates to swap out. And
okay,
the bestest boy ever.
Ooh, crypto. Well, I'll do you one better, sir. I will have my Mr. Terrific bathtub toy that I got.
Nice. I didn't. I'm happy for you.
Yes. I love me some bathtub toys. They're cheap and they're big, and I like them. So
she said.
Sorry. Wow. No, it's all good. So Chris will be joining us shortly. He's being a father, he's being, doing his fatherly stuff. I get it. So right now we are going to get started with our review. And I was very, I will admit, that I probably wasn't as excited for Superman as I wanted to be for a long time. And I'm not sure it's because I'm just busy and life has gotten crazy. And there's been so many reboots and restarts that I've lived through myself already. And admittedly, I'm not the biggest Superman fan between the three of us, obviously. I mean, I don't think that makes me not qualified to talk about Superman or to love Superman, but my knowledge is not to your, you and Chris's level, right? So I say all this because it's one of those things where as we got closer and closer, I just didn't really feel super excited necessarily. But, I was, but as the movie got closer, as far as we got to June, I started feeling the hype a little bit more, and I started getting kind of excited. And then once, they had everyone started, talking about the previews, and I was like showings and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get full on jealous now. So, this movie, I don't know if it's too little too late, Javi. And when I say that, I say that because this movie's got a lot of good buzz, a lot of good praise. People have critics for, which to be honest, that's pretty good. To be honest, I was surprised about that. I thought I'd be around a B+, which I mean, I know it's not great that's not a good sign for second weekend necessarily, but regardless, I would say that, I don't know. It was weird. It's one of those things where I just don't know where I kind of stand on everything as far as what does this all mean? But when I'm watching the movie, or the movie's come out, and I'm just thinking to myself, the buzz after it has been pretty solid, rock solid, right? And I'm really hoping that right off the bat, I just got to say, I really am hoping that this is something that, yes, exactly, Rob. Yes. I'm really hoping that this movie is something that can keep building. And I think that the truth will be what the second weekend will be. You know, that to me will see the
find it.
Yeah.
That'll at least give us an idea of where we're going, because how many of these things have opened decently or big, and then, you know, the drop off is astronomical. Now, in some cases, like Spider-Man No Way Home, it had a massive drop off for week 2, but that was only because that opening weekend was like record shattering for what we were going
crazy
through, you know. So when you hit that high, like it's normal to have a massive drop when it's that big. What you don't want to do is have a decent opening and then have a massive drop, because that means no one's coming back to see it again, or the buzz was so bad they don't care. I mean, look at Joker 2, you know. Yeah, and to Rob's point, which, you know, go to your store and buy Spawn Kills Every Spawn, which is out in
hell yeah, dude.
I saw the other day.
Attaboy.
But this is Rob. I'm not the first person to say this, but this is like, hey Chris, this is like a Batman Begins situation, where Batman Begins had to build off the perception of Batman and Robin, and, you know, the DC stuff had to lay fallow for a few years, and we had to build back up and generate a buzz and be like, no, this is different. This isn't what came before, which was a lot harder to do back in 2005, because we have different means of communication now that weren't available to us really back then. And you know, like Rob said, you know, the box office is, you know, whatever, but given how, I mean, just looking at the picture of where we're at right now at this point in history, where Cap 4 opened on President's Day weekend, barely crossed 200 million domestic. Thunderbolts, which was much better received, I think is at 186 million right now. So not even as much as Cap, even though people liked it a lot more. And if you haven't been spoiled yet already, minor spoilers, that wasn't even really the name of the movie. You watch the movie and it's The New Avengers. And revealing that like a day after it came out to try and get people to go and see it, and with that end credit scene to get you hyped for what's coming later this month, like none of that coalesced into people going to see it again and again and again. And it's struggling. So already Man of Steel, Superman opened to 125 million. That's the final numbers. They thought it was going to be 122. It's 125. So given where DC was, where everyone was saying, you know, this is a dead brand, where Joker 2 bombed, Aquaman 2 came and went, Blue Beetle was a weird hybrid, the Suicide Squad was unfortunately a day and date thing, so that didn't make any money, and
during COVID, right in the heat of COVID,
during COVID, you know, nothing for DC since the Batman has grabbed an audience. And with Superman having that stigma of he's such a goody Boy Scout, or he's so powerful nothing can hurt him, so he's boring. He's not funny. You know, he's a relic of the past because he's so nice. Like, this movie overcame all of that to get butts in the seats. And I went to one of the Amazon screenings on Tuesday. And granted, these are people who really want to be there. But from my theater, like, it was almost wall-to-wall Superman shirts.
That's wild.
At that screening. And, you know, I've seen an advanced screening for The Flash. I've seen the one for BVS. I had to write an essay to get into the Ain't It Cool News Man of Steel screening, because that's how Harry Knowles at Ain't It Cool did things. And he wanted it packed with Superman fans. At that, I did not see as many Superman shirts as I did Tuesday night.
You never told me that story. Well, that's going to be a separate thing I'll have to ask you about someday.
So,
wow.
there was an
Harry Knowles.
electricity in the air that I haven't, felt in probably since No Way Home. Like, it's not going to, obviously it's not as big of a movie as that. This isn't changing the game like, the Batman, or not the Batman, Dark Knight did, or Endgame. But for where DC is at this time in history and with its characters, like, I was just hoping it would cross 100 million, since no one seems to be going to these other comic book movies. And the fact that we got to 125, like, that's pretty impressive and nice. And
nice.
It's definitely helping that it was filmed in IMAX and people are going for that IMAX experience, because you can't get an IMAX experience at home.
Okay, so let me just check in. I said interrupt you for a second, only because Javi, we're watching. I'm watching with Chris. Well, he'll join us in here hopefully soon. One of my best friends, and obviously co-host of our show here, Javi. Just for people who don't know, and the whole time I'm watching, I looked over and I'm like, this was filmed in IMAX? Like, the whole thing? I totally forgot. I forgot. And listen to this. So I went and saw it at at an RPX showing with the seven of us, of my family and my other best friends, Adam and his family. They're we hang out all the time. And my wife was dragged to it only because the wife, our good friend, wanted to go too, and she's like, I guess I have to go. And she's not into this stuff, right? She thought it was fine. But anyway, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, and it's a good theater screen. We were watching it on Sunday, but it was an RPX, like digitals, whatever, nice sound, whatever. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, like the screen is like this, like it was cut off on the sides because it's from an IMAX. I totally forgot. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Like, that makes complete sense. I mean, like, there's that, when you watch the the Snyder cut, same thing when you're watching, it gets, instead of being, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's only part of the screen.
The shifting ratios, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like, there were a lot of good things here that I think that James Gunn. I mean, here's a couple things I just got to get out of the way too. James Gunn was brilliant for a lot of different things, and he kind of gave, like, filming it all in IMAX was a brilliant point, and giving it that extra pizzazz, because I'm not gonna lie, dude, like, watching it in IMAX, like, seeing it in two different kinds of screens, I want to see it in IMAX again. And I thought after the second time, I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I thought about it. I'm like, I would love to see it in IMAX just one more time. Because I don't even know if Fantastic Four, the whole thing, I don't think that was all filmed in IMAX. I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
Well, even F1, like, that was, a lot of it was in IMAX, the F1 movie. And they did special things with the cameras on the cars and everything, and it's by the guy who did Top Gun Maverick. So, but that does the shifting ratios of like a 235 aspect ratio, and then the IMAX stuff gets really big.
Right.
This was
Dark Knight did that. Yeah.
This is consistently the same tall aspect ratio the entire running time. But
I got it.
As great as it was, like, the IMAX that we saw it in is really more of a IMAX. It's not like the good IMAX theater here in Austin.
Sure.
But like, I got more out of it the second time seeing it in Dolby Atmos at the Alamo Drafthouse.
Really?
Yeah. Like, when we see that key Mr. Terrific scene, not this one, but the other one on the beachhead. Holy cow, things were flying like all over the place. And not even just that scene, but like any of the action scenes. There was stuff I was hearing in the Fortress of Solitude that I didn't notice. Just a ton of stuff. And it was a lot of fun too, just to see it in that.
James Gunn, if you listen to him on the press, listen to him now, and just before and afterwards, I gotta say what you want about James Gunn. I've been really impressed how he's handled himself and and organizing this DC universe that he's now, orchestrating with Peter Safran. And it remains to be seen, how the rest of it's going to be. But I mean, it's been pretty, like, I've been impressed. And he just keeps constantly, bringing back comic books. He's always saying, like, I saw a video today on the red carpet from the premiere, and he said that, every DC project's going to is going to be totally different, because that's what it was like in the comic books. Like, everything can't be the same tone. And he brought up the whole point of, like, Long Halloween, The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen. They all have different, they're different tones. Or he said All-Star. He didn't say Watchmen on that one, but he said All-Star Superman, Watchmen, Long Halloween. They are totally all different. But that's what makes DC, and I think, to me, also Marvel as well, and a lot of comic book properties. But that there's not a total, like, we have to do it like this. It is what, the stories need. And I think that the tendency with, and Marvel does, I think, for the most part, an okay job. Marvel Studios, for the most part, there's a little bit of a admittedly a cookie cutter aspect, I think, to Marvel films. But when Guardians came in, it was a breath of fresh air. I mean, and yeah, I mean, let's see here. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, Gunn's I'm really impressed with how he's handled everything, Javi. And obviously we'll kind of get into more of the story here and the characters, but I've just been really impressed with how he's been able to really, show people that this is going to be a different thing. And he's not going to be bogged down with, we have to do this, we have to do that. There has to be conviction in the stories they tell. And that goes with a lot of planning and trust. And I think that's what, honestly, if I'm being real with you right now, I think that's what Kevin Feige had at first. There was kind of like a no fear kind of thing, and we're just going to go for it, and we're going to tell different kinds of stories. And I think, you could say they kind of fell victim to their own success, because they had a lot of success for a long time. And it sucks because even now with Marvel stuff, like, I love Thunderbolts to death. I liked Brave New World. I think Thunderbolts maybe one of the better Marvel films. So it's just weird, but James Gunn has done a great job of starting this off. And if you wanted to comment on that, I'll let you, and then I'll go on to the next point here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been out there, as have, like, the whole cast, but in particular, Rachel Brosnahan and David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult, like, selling this movie, doing every interview. I don't know how they sleep. There's so much on my YouTube feed that's different videos with them. But I mean, he's been pushing the punk rocker narrative hard, that, in today's world, kindness is like punk rock. And he's been very upfront about one of the themes being kind to each other. And, it comes through in the film. And there was something he said at a Q&A in London where he was like, I think I said this on the last show, like, no one really is starting with these characters at the beginning at this point. He's like, I'm the oldest guy in the room. And, I didn't start reading, X, Y, Z, whatever at the first issue. And with this movie, like, a lot of us just kind of jumped in to where, like, the first Batman comic I remember reading is like Batman 432. Like, I know I read other ones before that, but I mean, that's like major stuff. It just happened, like Death in the Family. And, you get intrigued, be it from the story or the art, and you just kind of go from there. And that's kind of what this movie is. Like, it gives you that setup of 300 years ago, this happened. 3 years ago, Superman showed up. 3 months ago,
which was
this,
brilliant.
3 hours ago, this. And it's like you're in the middle of this storyline. You don't know why his S is the way it is. You don't know how he got his job.
You don't care.
You don't know how and why he and Lois started dating, if Lois loved or was infatuated with Superman first. Like none of that origin movie things that you usually get when you're reestablishing a new universe or introducing characters for the first time. Like with characters like I think with the big three, with like Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man, you don't need to give us the origin story. Yeah, you can be curious of how like Tom Holland got bit or, how his uncle
Yeah.
Ben died, but it's really not necessary at this point when we've had almost 50 years of these big budget movies and cartoons and streaming, which lets any of these be available at any time of day. Like we don't need to see Krypton blow up, nice. You don't need to do all that you don't need the setup. Everybody knows that Superman and Lois are a thing. Lexus is bad guy, the Joker is the bad guy for Batman. Like you don't need to see Heath Ledger fall into a vat of chemicals and become the Joker at this point, and it detracts from the story you're trying to tell, which should be your main character. It should be Clark. I really liked how we just dove in and like,
right. Well, so besides the comic book aspect, right? Like the fact that like the whole being dropped into it is brilliant because people are going to be like, there's certain people are going to dislike, you can't please everybody, right? Like that's standard. The thing what's fascinating, and I love that Gunn did this, is that he knows that I'd say majority of people are going to like, they will be fine with it. Attaboy, Carlos, miss you, brother. Most people are gonna be fine with it if you just give it a little bit of a backstory. Because in the end, people by the time they're halfway through the movie hobby, they're not gonna care.
Yeah,
they're just gonna accept it. So let me case in point. Let me bring it. Let's not even talk about comics for a second, which I know sacrilege on this channel. But let's talk about a movie I think that most people hold. Yeah, my boy Carlos. Carlos will get you on soon, homie. I promise. So the thing is with film, I'm going to name a film that most people they love. There's a belovedness to this film. It's an 80s film. Okay. I want to talk about Back to the Future for a second.
I knew you were going to go there.
I brought this up on the MCU fan show review,
which I didn't hear, but I had that vibe from you.
Right. Okay. So hear me out. I think you probably know where I'm going with this. Do we care how Marty and Doc meet initially?
No. It's pre-existing.
Exactly. No one cares. It pre-exists. We get a little backstory, and that's it. We don't know anything. They literally throw us right in the middle of everything of their relationship, and we're just there to accept the fact that he's a genius, and Marty and him are like hang out on the reg, and like he makes stuff for Marty. Like we don't have to. Well, who's it? Why is this young kid hanging out with this old guy? What is that all about? Like no one cares. They accept it, and I think and this is not. Back to the Future is more, it's kind of not necessarily the norm, but I felt like and feel like a lot of old films trusted that, like the movie Legend. Like just because you have like some kind of crawl or some kind of narrative thing beforehand makes it like worth like everyone's gonna accept it, because that didn't work for Blade Runner for both films, even though they're classics, but. Or Legend, one of my favorite movies. But what you have to realize, though, is that, but for the most part, people don't care that you're just coming right in the middle of something. Like no one cares.
There's a place for
most people don't
stories, like Batman Begins. Like I love that movie. It's its 20th anniversary, and I appreciate the job that they do in that. And that's coming from someone who knew what was going to happen. In as much as, the Wayne's getting killed and all that. But I mean, I'm looking at like two dudes on the screen right now that 10 years ago, like I didn't know who you guys were. I mean, maybe a little bit of Chris from Batman on Film, but like you guys had lives before we ever met, but that doesn't stop me from being interested in you guys or being friends with you because I don't know your prior backstories. Like we have that capacity as people to interact with and enjoy and get to know people that we don't know everything about them. And if the story is told well enough, like it is in this movie, like you can just run with it and pick up where all the characters are. And if they're engaging enough, like it doesn't matter. But Chris, we have been talking about the initial box office and just kind of gotten started with, how the movie just drops you into the middle of it. What was your experience like? How many times have you seen it so far? I'm at 2. I know Paul's at 2.
I'm at 2 as well.
All right. And what was that experience like for you both nights? How was your crowd?
The crowd was hot both times. First time was with Paul, so he can attest to that. Second time, yeah, it was the energy was good. Um, it's just I'm still so unaccustomed. You know what this reminds me of? Kind of, at least, is the experience of seeing the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie.
Oh, see, we just talked about Batman Begins having a similar road ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean,
but I see your point about Star Trek as well.
Yeah, I think you know where I would be going with that. I mean, Batman doesn't have as much of a hill to climb when it comes to pop
Being
culture
cool.
relevance,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely being cool. And in 2009, it was so weird when Star Trek was cool for everybody for like 20 minutes. And I wasn't used to it, and I relished it. And I still look back fondly on it. This feels kind of like that because I'm unaccustomed to Superman being the center of the pop cultural conversation. Um, at least not to this degree, not to the degree that I guess maybe in the early 90s he was, and what happened there. It was a very different kind of catalyst to pop cultural discussions of Superman. With this, it feels different from Star Trek '09 in the sense that I had a sense at that time, at least I feel like I had a sense that it wasn't gonna last. This could last, because this is the thing that's different about this is that it's a foundation, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the sigh of relief that I breathed while I was at work and I started to see, the reviews trickle in and word of mouth from people that I trust, professional critics whom I'm still friends with, sharing their perspectives. Sorry that I didn't get a chance to see it sooner, but we got there, and after Man of Steel and being so hyped for that movie at the time, and feeling like something just thudded for me, I started to get used to that. And then in BVS, when the same sort of stream of events started happening, and it was clear that it didn't seem to be connecting with audiences the way that I was hoping that it would. And then I got to see it for myself, and there was not an abundance of daylight between the larger perception of that movie and my own. And then this, it feels like there was a lot more pressure. I feel like Superman deserves a spot at the top of the kitchen, but at the same time too, the creative stewards of him didn't really give a reason for him to be there, because it chose to emphasize things about him that are inherently difficult for people to connect with. It's a challenge to connect with a stoic, secular messiah who is always photographed as someone looking down on everybody. And most of the Superman stories that I know, several of the stories that we have touched on in the countdown to this moment on this show, emphasize his core humanity. It's always been a trait of Superman's that I've gravitated to the most. His humanity in spite of his power that naturally separates him. And seeing that humanity emphasized in such a way, well, I mean, there are plenty of ways to get around that. Um, if Lex has an understanding of his DNA, then I'm sure that he has an understanding of the way that lead interacts with his X-ray vision. Just say it. But the humanity being emphasized is something that I've always wanted from a Superman movie. And I think that's what's resonating with people. You know, the movie does a really good job of putting that in everybody's face. That
From the start,
yeah,
not just from the start of the movie, but
yeah,
the start of the marketing, we saw that this wasn't
absolutely.
a Superman we'd seen before.
Sure, but you know, going back to what you were saying about just dropping everybody in the middle of things, um, and beginning here at this image is something that really gets to this idea. It's very much the same sort of conception of Superman's physical power that you got from Superman the Animated Series, for instance. You know, they specifically chose, like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Michael Reeves and everybody else who was involved with developing Superman the Animated Series, was specifically involved in on the raw power to make him more relatable. And James Gunn has spoken specifically in very similar terms about scaling
Excellent
his
point,
raw
Rob.
power down. It's not, if the power is getting in the way of people understanding who he is and what he's about and what he tries to do with himself, then it needs to be addressed. And I think the movie effectively does that. And we're seeing the results of that. We're seeing the connection
But
with the human
Chris,
Superman.
but Chris, Superman spends the whole movie getting his butt kicked, and that just is not Superman. Apparently, Superman this whole movie. Superman just gets tossed around everywhere and is constantly getting beat up on. And like, who wants to see that? Who wants to see Superman deal with conflict? And then he cries after his friend gets shot in the head. What kind of Superman is that? How dare he show tears?
It's a real Superman. And I know that that's
Yeah.
kind of an oxymoronic phrase, but it's true. I mean, most of the best Superman stories depict him up against very challenging odds. You know, the best Superman stories, it's not like everything's a cakewalk for him. He struggles through things. And it's the struggle that defines the connection that the audience has. And comics creators throughout his history have understood that. You know, arguably, maybe it kind of got away from the point in the 70s. Denny O'Neil always brought up, you know, he blew out a star like you can blow out a candle. How are you supposed to get conflict into a story? Denny O'Neil very wisely understood it's kind of an impediment for not only just conflict, but also connection. How are you supposed to relate to somebody? And the way that you always relate to Superman in the best examples of his storytelling is by emphasizing that core humanity. That has always been the key, and it has frankly always been something that filmmakers have, for whatever reason, absolutely it's not even, these are smart people. It's not that they can't grasp it, it's that they refused to grasp it in a substantive way. None of them took enough lessons from Superman comics, from the source material, regarding his connections to people, his relationships, his power level, and the kinds of stuff that he deals with. Paul, the first time you and I watched this movie, you commented on the pacing and how it was rather frenetic. And if I'm remembering correctly, the thing that I told you that all that emphasized to me was that that's his life. He's always juggling so many
Great
different
point.
facets of his life between being an investigative reporter and being a hero who has to do more work to make sure that everybody is protected. You know, he saves a squirrel He's holding a baby out of a proton stream river, and while he's being beaten nearly to death. That's a challenge. And for whatever reason, these filmmakers have never emphasized the challenge. Instead, it's, well, let's break his neck. You know, it's just that's Superman's almost militant belief in the preservation of life is one of the things that adds additional challenge to the conflicts that he faces on a regular basis. And he can take it. He is a Kryptonian who exercises good judgment and discernment when he does every single thing that he does. None of that was really ever emphasized in a movie except maybe in 1978. But everybody since then has just like glossed over it in favor of just showing us the power level. And that's not enough these days. These days, especially, if people want to talk about superhero fatigue, showcasing what these extraordinary people can do is not enough to get people in the door anymore. People know that superheroes can do amazing things, but what's the toll of having to balance so many different things at the same time? Just because you can doesn't mean you always will. And this movie emphasized that really, really effectively. And I'm very pleased with it.
You know, I want to acknowledge something here real quick. You know, listen, my friend, you can not like the movie. That's fine. I just 1000% disagree with everything you're saying, because if everything that in this movie is not uber serious, yes, but there are tons of great moments that maybe we interpret things differently. Like, you think anything that's not uber serious is a joke. I feel like there's a good balance here. You know, so just for the record, I disagree with everything you're saying. So just wanted to throw that out to you real quick.
Read more comics.
Yes, exactly. So the thing about this movie that I think that I really appreciate, the most thing I appreciate about this is the fact that Superman is a consistent character, and that, you know, I told Javi this earlier, Chris, but someone was complaining on some, you know, saying Superman gets his butt kicked for all the movie and all this stuff, and for me it's like, you know, who wants to see Superman get his butt kicked for the entire movie? And I said, you know, what do you want? Like, do you want no conflict? Like, we got that movie. You know what it's called? Superman Returns. Like, there's no, like, and hold on. I understand you love Superman Returns. I get it. But one of the biggest criticisms of that movie, Chris, and my criticism of that movie,
I was about
you like that movie. You told me.
I was about to agree.
You told me you like. Wait, I thought you liked that movie. You told me you liked that movie.
I like it fine. That doesn't mean that I think it's great. What I was about to try to piggyback was that
all right, please.
The importance of conflict really can't be overstated. And you have legions of these stories where he has to juggle so many different things. One of my favorite like moments in an ongoing Superman story is, I think it's number 654, written by Kurt Busiek, drawn by Carlos Pacheco, where it is a day in the life where he has to report on a city council meeting as Clark Kent and try to get an interview with a couple of city officials. Problem is that he's being held underwater by a gigantic squid and can't really break out. So he's trying to listen to the meeting with the super hearing and know enough so that he can get enough notes down so that he can actually make his deadline. That's a cool moment. And he can't juggle all of those things at the same time. And at the end of the day, all of his deadlines are met. How? Because of Lois. She stepped in because she knew he was busy, and she did what any good partner would do and stepped up and helped her husband when he needed it in the way that she could. And that's human, you know. It's just like that. That's a good partnership.
Let me jump in on what Nico is saying.
Watch Smallville.
Yeah, there is some precedent in Smallville for Jor-El being seen as maybe a little malevolent, and not only that, like this is just chapter 1 of
Exactly.
I don't know, how many pieces, right? Who's to say that we're not going to find out down the road that no one on Earth tampered with it, but maybe an advanced technology, advanced civilization like Brainiac. Maybe Brainiac altered the message, and that's why we couldn't detect it.
Maybe
Hello,
there's a far
don't know.
simpler.
And
I think
when the movie was happening, that wasn't something that sparked immediate outrage with me. Yes, it is a little bit of Invincible with that, plot point, but we've seen we didn't know where the movie was going at that point, if it was going to get disproven by the end of it. So I didn't get outraged, and like it didn't ruin the whole movie for me right then and there, because the story was still being told. But now that it's done and we don't have anything definitive, that really wasn't what Gunn was trying to say with this journey for Clark. It was him discovering that who he is comes from, his parents. He was clinging to this idea from his biological parents, but it was Jonathan and Martha that really made him and shaped him to who he was. And that's why we had that big shift at the end. But give me just one sec, Paul.
Yes, please.
It's you derailed me.
Sorry.
The thing is, like, we've seen so many different aspects of characters' origins being tampered with. The first thing that crossed my mind was like Batman Damned, which doesn't put Thomas Wayne in the best light. He doesn't seem like the nicest guy in Joker either. The movie, not the book. And Chris, like the Telltale games, definitely don't paint Thomas Wayne in a good light in that reality. And this is just an alternate. All these things are different realities, So if it's okay in one reality, it doesn't have to be that way in the other. But the thing of it is, like, whether this was an honest message or not, like, that doesn't define who, like, that's the whole point of the movie. It doesn't define who Clark is. Like, having the L's be malevolent doesn't really impact who Clark is or why he does what he does. Not like having Thomas Wayne having his memory sullied would maybe affect how Bruce is the Batman, because he has this whole other set of parents that he knows that give him, like, his biological parents give him his strength, but like his humanity and all those good attributes, all those moral lessons come from Jonathan and Martha. Now, if you found out that, Jonathan was like a pedophile or something, that would change things dramatically. But at the end of the day, like, it to me didn't bother me. And I don't know how other people felt about it, but wasn't a concern for me.
Listen, to speak, not in unless you're doing Sin City, is the first movie. Like, everything's not going to be comic book accurate. Like, no matter how much I love something, there's going to be differences. So first of all, this is hilarious. I'm sorry, it is. Like, it's not everything's going to be comic accurate. It's not. That's not why I love it. But the people, who are, again, like us, we're open to some ideas, But like, again, comic accuracy. Hold on, stop. I want to finish my point. The thing is, comic accuracy isn't always just pure plot points. It's also tone. It's also feel. And that's the thing about, and look, and that's the thing about this, that we don't, like, people, when I say comic accurate, it's not just pure canon. It's a number of different things. And the last thing I want to say before I throw it to you, Chris, I appreciate you letting me fill this out. If you ever compare Invincible and say Invincible did it first, who the F is Invincible basically based on, Holmes? Come on. And so I have this GIF. Have you ever seen the movie Almost Famous?
Yes.
Okay, Lester Bangs and Cameron Coe's character William. They're outside, and he asked him, "Do you like Lou Reed?" He was like, "The early stuff when he wasn't doing, now he's just trying to do David Bowie." And he's like, and then Lester looks at him and goes, "But if Lou's doing Bowie, but Bowie's doing Louis, Louis still doing Louis." And that's exactly what this is. Don't tell me Invincible did it first, because let me tell you right now, Invincible is basically Junior Superman. Chris, be my guest.
We're getting away from the point. And
no, this is great. I love this.
That no, we're getting away from the point of the issue, which is the balance that is necessary in any adaptation. We had someone who just totally nailed it in a very brief comment. Christopher Evans. And he's right.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
Since we have never seen a cinematic adaptation of Superman that has properly emphasized his humanity in relation to his Kryptonian heritage, while still maintaining a generally pretty high degree of fidelity to who Superman is and always has been, there's always in adaptation a need to strike balance between fidelity to the source material and the thematic aim of the story that you're trying to tell. And Chris Evans got it right out of the park. If you want to get to the moment where he chooses us, he chooses humanity over that heritage, it's a really efficient way to communicate that choice and the starkness of that choice by doing what was done with his Kryptonian parents. And if we get a more truthful Superman overall, compared to anything that we've seen over the past decade and a half or 25 years, really, that is absolutely a worthy trade-off to make, because we got to a Superman that has a great, grand sense of belonging to the people that he protects. Something that was never sufficiently emphasized when he is, hovering in the heavens, looking down on a family, just trying to ask him for help while their house is surrounded with water. We never got that stuff properly emphasized, particularly in the most recent Old Guard. Having that humanity front and center, if that means that Jor-El's a dick now, that's a price I'm willing to pay, because Superman's adaptation is more important than those of the supporting characters, especially one with a generally limited role of importance in the overall scheme of the story told here, like Jor-El and Lara. They were not as important to the story being told as Superman was, or Jonathan and Martha Kent, or Lois, or Jimmy, or Perry, or Lex. All of those people were pretty damn truthful to the way that they have been since at least, the mid 80s, and going back a little bit further in some cases. So it's a fine trade-off, and I think it's absolutely worthy of it.
Yeah, I think the Jor-El, I wanted to bring this up, and this is a good segue into this and more deeper in the story here, is one of the things that I thought was interesting. Do you guys remember the original name of this movie?
Legacy.
Superman Legacy.
Superman Legacy.
Yeah. And I was a little perplexed by that at first, as far as why did he have such cold feet? Obviously it was a smart decision, in my opinion. There was a couple of really creative things that he was doing that he wanted to, obviously, he went back on and went more straight ahead forward with it, which I think is a great point, or a great decision, obviously. But the one thing I will say that, and one of my biggest criticisms actually of the movie, which I love this movie, for those who don't know, I often love this movie. And for the record, if people don't know, I love Man of Steel too, for different things. So I'm not saying I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I love they both serve different purposes. Anyway, back to Superman, movie now. I do find the whole idea of legacy being that was to me what he sacrificed. It seems like Gunn sacrificed the legacy trope, not trope, but the theme, excuse me, and put that in with like I'm just bringing in back into humanity, and you definitely feel a little bit. I wouldn't say disjointed, but you feel a little bit of that, like where maybe more on the cutting room floor, or he went and went back a little bit, because I do feel that the Kents were sacrificed a little bit in this movie, in my opinion, to a detriment, because and again, I felt better about it the second time, but the ending doesn't feel as earned to me when he's like, his visions of his parents soothe him, and it's mom and pa Kent. It didn't really feel earned to me. And as an adoptive father myself, and someone who, I would want, I mean, and that's one thing I thought the Man of Steel did a great job of, by the way. Like, I thought they did a great job of really emphasizing, the adoptive aspect, in Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent. But that being said, it definitely felt like the legacy aspect was sacrificed to bring in the humanity aspect. No, I'm not saying that. I thought that the Pa Kent scene was great. I wish I had more of that, a little bit more. But again, there were sacrifices made for this film for I think the future of the franchise and the DC universe as a whole, that I just have to accept
you're only taking a one-sided look at legacy.
Sure.
You're just looking at his Kryptonian legacy, and at the end of the movie, he embraces his human legacy more when it comes to like the Fortress of Solitude. I mean, how much do we really see of Jor-El and Laura in this movie compared to Jonathan and Martha? Like, I would say we get a little bit more of the Kents than we do of the Els. And the legacy theme is still there, just because maybe, we don't get as much time with him as we want. And there's quite a few people we don't get as much time with as we want in this movie. But I mean, let's be honest, there's a whole rich cast that we didn't get quite enough of. But I think that the legacy thing still stands, whether or not
it's there. I agree, it's still there.
I don't think it gets sacrificed at all. Like, part of his legacy is being raised by Jonathan and Martha.
But it's not emphasized enough as much as as his humanity. Like I know, like, we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but I feel like the theme of legacy and all that is it's more of a plot thing, to move plot forward rather than like the main central theme of what's going on. And again, I don't dislike what they did. The Jor-El thing I thought was interesting, because I do feel it's going to be retconned, quote unquote, or changed at some point, because it doesn't feel right, and
I disagree with Justin right here.
If it does, was that?
I said I disagree with Justin right here, because really Jor-El is Superman 1. And depending on your cut, maybe Superman 2. Otherwise, Laura's in the other ones more than Jor-El, because Brando.
Yeah. When you, so I don't know. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's just not there enough when you could tell that was kind of a driving force. But again, I say it was sacrificed to bring the humanity aspect forward more, which I thought was probably the best choice in my opinion. But at the same time, the ending feels a little weaker to me. It doesn't land as well for me that I wanted it to, personally.
Yeah, I can see how that would be. Look, the movie is a wash in Kryptonian imagery, really.
Yeah.
And there is so much. He spends really most of the runtime a little dismissive of his adoptive parents, in favor of holding the lofty verbiage of the first half of the Kryptonian message as like his entire reason for being. Do we need more than that? I don't think we do. I think the movie struck a very good balance because for the vast majority of the runtime, that is his rock. When that's taken
Yeah.
away from him and he's given a reason to look inward and to listen to his adoptive father in that very critical moment in what I think is probably the best scene in the movie, that's when he starts to understand more about his own sense of belonging. And that's when he makes the choice, the very critical choice to not abandon, but at least to mitigate the importance of what he thought that message said in light of the lessons that his human parents bestowed on him, which is, make good choices. And he does. And it leads to the parental pride, and it leads to his further embracing of that side of his lineage. So despite less of a direct presence from Jor-El and Lara, the movie emphasizes Kryptonian nature and
Totally.
culture a lot. And I feel like that's perfectly sufficient, especially considering, the ultimate message of the movie and the importance to get out, connect with people, maybe touch grass once in a while. I mean, it's a movie that's full of rage monkeys too, right? As a pretty direct contrast.
No, Zach.
So
Super shit.
No,
super shit.
no,
Hashtag,
Zach.
yeah.
No, you're wrong.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
agree with that.
okay, let me
And to counter what Zach's saying here, I love you, buddy.
sure go ahead, and we'll move on. And we'll move on after this.
Let's something I wanted to shift to anyways is the relationship of Lois and Clark. Like that whole apartment scene at the beginning of the movie, like that is nothing but letting those characters breathe and letting us know where they are right then and there. Like
Agreed.
they've known each other for at least 3 years. We know that they've been secretly dating for like 3 months, and they know each other well enough that she knows how he gets when they have a disagreement about something, or how he feels about social media, or how people talk about him, and he knows that she loves breakfast, and there's that whole scene of the interview of like her being a journalist first and foremost, and making him think of things from a different perspective. Like we've come a long way from Mary Jane being held captive at the end of every Spider-Man movie for Peter to come and rescue. And like this gives us just another example of why Lois is such a good match for Clark, and how she is his equal even though she doesn't have powers. Like despite all that, she's every bit as heroic going to go save him, even though they had a big fight and maybe they're going to be breaking up at some point after this. Like that doesn't deter her from, going to a pocket dimension to save him. And hands down, this is my favorite Lois on the big screen. I need a little more time, maybe another movie or two to like say she's definitive across all media landscapes, because I'm always going to have like a soft spot for Erica Durance. And Bitsy Tulloch on Superman and Lois was sensational. So, but in terms of cinematic versions, like she was easily like number one for me. And the relationship that we got to see them portray throughout the whole film. Where did you guys stand on their interactions? Do you buy their chemistry?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that has consistently made the pairing between Superman and Lois as compelling and long-standing as it always has been is because, yeah, she might not have his powers, but she is his equal. And we've never had that sufficiently emphasized in a movie, to certainly to my satisfaction, at least. Going back granted, they're products of their time, but the Reeve films, Lois was largely a figure in distress. I was disappointed to see that that persisted into Superman Returns, and it also persisted more than I would have preferred into Man of Steel. It was less so, thankfully. And Lois had a lot of agency in that movie, which I appreciated. But there wasn't that equal level that I was hoping for. It got closer, and that movie and the DCEU generally, in the way that it treated Lois, does deserve credit for that. But it wasn't quite there. And I think this movie gets there. So, I mean, this goes back to me fighting with people on forums in 2002 or 3 who were like, well, it's got to be Clark and Lana forever. People who had jumped into the Superman world through Smallville for the first
Dude,
time. And in my head,
that
I'm
is
just like,
Brooke last week. That is Brooke an hour ago. When we met Kristen Kruk, God, 6 years ago now at a con, threw me under the bus in front of her. Oh, I was, a Clois person, and she's Klana forever. And
that's
how
funny.
Lana was, the best love interest on Smallville.
Look, more
So,
power to you, but
you
you and
know,
I know who he's destined to be with forever.
yes.
And giving proper service to the balance of that relationship, I think, is really important in a story that features both of them. And I have to go back a little bit to something that Zach said here about the back. Oh,
Sorry, man.
oops, no,
Do
no
your thing.
worries. The background here, and look, I get that to a point. But what was it? Was it an article in Variety that I shared with you guys on our text thread the other day about the way that the world was being positioned here? Um,
Yeah.
the opening exposition emphasizing that metahumans aren't new. They've been around for hundreds of years by this point. And this stuff in the DCEU certainly would be super distracting. In the opening days of the MCU, certainly super distracting. But everybody in this DCU has lived with these fantastical realities for as long as anyone can remember. And it rather brilliantly sidesteps the issue of the DCEU about, bringing an otherworldly alien for the first time. You're not going to have those same conflicts anymore, and they're kind of played out. The MCU did it first, and the MCU probably did it best on film. And then when the DCEU picked it up with BVS and didn't do it as well, then it got tired, right? By sidestepping that and by having a world that is well established to have a long-standing metahuman presence, going back long before Superman even came into the picture, the world we are dropped even more effectively into the middle of everything. Superman is the turning point. Superman is the beginning of a new kind of heroic age. I'll be really interested to see if there are allusions to the Justice Society in years ahead. We've gotten just a slight glimpse of what's going on in World War II in this DCU via Creature Commandos. But
Did you not see their mural in the Hall of Justice?
oh, I guess I didn't. Well, there you go.
When Lois goes in to see them, on the left side of the screen, there's a whole mural on the wall, and it's like there's definitely Wildcat, maybe Jake Garrick. It's really quick. It's going to be one of those.
The movie's already 10%
freeze frame.
10%.
Yeah,
it's already 10% better then.
yeah.
And I didn't even see that. So, like, Zach, I get where you're coming from, that it is distracting, but I think that is designed to serve as a statement about the kind of world that they all live in. This is one that is well established, that has had metahumans for so long that we don't need to relitigate all of those rather tired questions that served as the foundation of Superman's presence in the DCEU. We can just drop into a heroic good time and something that is far more closely tied to the DCU that a lot of people read week in and week out. Because, the history of metahumans in the DC Comics universe goes back even further than hundreds of years, right? So I like that shift. I respect if it doesn't work for you, but I think it does give us a whole different way to just proceed with forward momentum with superhero stories that get the tired preliminaries of superhero cinema and the trappings of superhero cinema that we've lived with now for almost 20 years, so that they're not even an issue going forward.
You know, well, let's get to the gang here, and then let's get to Lex, and then we'll kind of wrap up with our general thoughts and about Superman himself in the movie. I love the Justice Gang. I thought they were great. Obviously, my boy Mr. Terrific, Javi, if you can take that off just for a quick second, show people my beautiful bathtub toy of Mr. Terrific that I love very dearly.
Saw that the other day. I was very tempted.
They're just fun, man. Like, admittedly, the Superman one doesn't look great, but for whatever reason, Mr. Terrific looks great. I think he looks awesome.
He just always has. That's all. It's just.
I mean, like I like the difference of the costume from the comics to this. You know, it being the all black to black and white, and this one it's just contrast wise looks pretty good. So yeah, I mean, so I don't know, like this is definitely worth $10. You know, it's like I'm not gonna get mad if it gets ruined. You know, it's $10. I mean, but yeah, like, but I mean, Mr. Terrific, I thought, my wife is, not the biggest fan of these things, right? And as we all, as I've said before many times, but one thing that I will say that she said to me was, "Oh, he was awesome. Mr. Terrific was awesome. He's my favorite character." She absolutely loved Mr. Terrific. He definitely stole the show. I wasn't a huge fan of Hawk Girl myself, but I mean, it just, again, it's a Superman movie. You can't give everyone their due, but I thought focusing it on my boy, Mr. Terrific, was smart, and it honestly makes me want him. I think Nico, our other boy, our main boy, and I always say, what I even call him, Nico, Mr. Baby. Mr. Baby himself said he has to be in the Justice League now, right? Like the real Justice League. And I'm like, why is it? JSA. No, put in the Justice League. Like, but put this guy in the Justice League. Why isn't he in the Justice League?
Because he chose the JSA.
Well, I'm saying like now, like DC
doesn't exist yet.
When it does,
maybe they'll do that.
Upgrade.
I wouldn't be against that, but I would really like to see the JSA. I think that there is a lot of. There is.
Dude, are they that important?
Two of them, right?
Yes.
How? Listen, how is the JSA? Why? Hold on. Is JSA that important to establish?
League without them?
Yes.
There wouldn't be a Fantastic Four or Avengers without them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like just in the universe. Is it that critical?
Yes. Okay.
But why?
Really
Tell me why.
We haven't really talked about, other than outside of All-Star Superman, all the different comic book references, Birthright, Kingdom.
I'm not grumpy.
You're a little angry.
No, I'm not. No, I just. Hold
on. No. You're muted. Look,
that's fair.
That's fair. This takes a lot of influence from like that Triangle era style of comics, and we're seeing it right now currently with, I haven't read it yet because it's really long. The first issue of Mark Waid's New History of the DC Universe, and it's bringing back more of that Triangle era flavor and continuity, or that post-crisis continuity. Because with the post-crisis stuff, when they folded everything in together, all the different Earths, like the JSA were the reason that there was a Justice League, because they took them as their inspiration to do what they did. And as we're seeing currently,
you don't need that.
As we're seeing currently in Mark Waid's Action Comics, Jonathan would train Clark as Superboy with his powers, and have him study the Justice Society to, to learn about how to use his powers and how to fight people and all these other things that Wade's delving into.
Spoiler alert.
Go read Action Comics.
I'm going to. It's funny, really quickly. I'm finishing up Phil PKJ's run, and then after that, I'm gonna read that. I'm gonna get caught up digitally with Action because I don't want to get the physical anyway. But okay,
you're gonna want to get the physical when you read it. I guarantee you, because I didn't want to get it physically, and now I am because I liked it that much, and I'm not a Superboy guy.
All right, Chris, what's your take on the Justice Gang?
I really liked him. I mean, it seems like just the presence of Guy Gardner makes it really evocative, and I guess just the fact that Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific, at least in terms of just like recognizability, are a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of their stature in the DCU. So it's very evocative to me of Justice League International, and I really appreciate whenever someone can tell a story with characters that might be lesser known, but still have just this weight in the story while also having a lot of good lineage. Guy Gardner's presence to me is probably the most pivotal, just because direct references to the Green Lantern Corps. We know that Guy is going to play at least some role in the upcoming HBO show, which I'm super excited about, even more now than I was a week ago. And that's just a whole other corner of the DCU that has not, we barely scratched the surface of what that's going to mean. Mr. Terrific is a character that I've gravitated toward for a long time, really since I started reading JSA way back, a billion years ago. And I like Hawkgirl. She was probably the least recognizable to the character that I know from the books, but considering that, she's had a relatively limited role in other media.
We don't even know who she is.
Yeah, we don't know if she's Kendra. She seems like Kendra, at least in some degree, but we don't know that, and hopefully we'll find out at some point. But Maxwell Lord's presence bankrolling the team just further adds to the JLI vibes, and I really appreciate that. I think that using a Superman movie to showcase DC characters that are certainly pretty far from the public consciousness, at least a month ago, is a really good attitude to have, and it shows that they are looking across the entirety of the publication line to just find who connects. It's kind of, I feel like it's a similar sort of vibe to what elevated Cyborg in the DCEU, something that I always supported. Cyborg was a Justice League member by that point, of course, but not particularly well known. And I think most people seemed to agree that, particularly in the Snyder Cut, Cyborg was a standout character. Yeah. And there's a lot more they could do there, and I hope that we do see Cyborg specifically at some point again. But I just like elevating other characters, especially with the lead hero sort of spotlighting and leading the way and letting them in and giving more eyeballs on them. No notes. And Guy was a dick, just like he's supposed to be. So all good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's do Lex, and then we'll kind of wrap up with our general thoughts on Superman, the character in the movie. I love Lex Luthor. Loved. And I was that?
So why don't you marry him?
Maybe I will. Back off my dick, dude. Come on. No. The thing is, I think I said this before. I was a little nervous about Nicholas Hoult being Lex, to be honest. And part of it was because it was hard for me to see him being Lex. I just have a hard time seeing this. And he's a great actor. I've always thought he was a great actor. I've loved him since About a Boy, and he played Marcus. And seeing him as Lex Luthor really impressed me. Really, really impressed me. And I thought it was great. Definitely my favorite Lex, bar none, that I've seen anywhere interpreted, in my opinion. And I'll throw it to you guys here in a second. It's so weird that people are criticizing these they're criticizing this movie for characters crying. Like one Superman gets like whatever, but then when he gets teary-eyed when he's going on his mantra, like, who cries? Like that's weird. I'm like, he's an emotional moment for him.
Think about why Superman is crying and think about why Lex is crying. Superman's crying because
exactly
was murdered in front of him. Lex is crying because he is a man baby who has never been defeated so completely like that before. Until he started screwing around with Superman, and that's what he gets. He doesn't know how to deal with it because he's never had to deal with loss before on that kind of scale. So how does that culminate for him? Maybe he actually has a residue of a beating heart in his chest. Probably not, because he's just such a man baby that he can't take such an epic defeat at the hands of the world's greatest hero.
I thought maybe it was just because his arm was literally broken by the dog.
That probably doesn't help.
And that, made his eyes water because
it was before. It was before that.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was before.
He just got Loki'd and that would hurt. Like I liked whoever did the makeup for that. I thought they did a good job on the broken arm bit.
But it's wild to me that people see this as like it seems like a very unlex thing. It's like no, because at that moment
those aren't valid observations. Those are not valid observations because they come from a place that is they come from people who would find anything to dislike about the movie and try to amplify it as much as possible. The movie directly depicted those kinds of people, and in my opinion, correctly depicted those kinds of people. And I don't think we need to dwell on it.
No, I agree. I just wanted to say that for the record. I thought that Lex was fantastic. I thought Nicholas Hoult, I honestly, this is the Lex Luthor that I have always, wanted to see or thought I'd see on the screen. And what was missing was just him suiting up, for a fight, which we'll eventually get. And in this way they're doing it, like, I gotta say, like, I'm assuming he's building up to them going mano a mano, and that happens. It's going to be, yeah. Thanks, Chris. I mean, he totally surprised me. He just killed it. Like I came away impressed and also very excited that they cast him because now he's going to be probably heavily featured. I would not be shocked if he turned into not like a Loki-like character where he's sympathetic, but Loki where he keeps showing up in other films, kind of a thing.
I mean, it depends on how much Jeff Johns is involved in the future of DC Studios.
Ouch.
And that's a reference to I'm not making an ouch, but just given Jeff Johns' proclivity to turn his villains that he really loves into heroes, like on the aforementioned Justice League book in the new, it was New 52. And then that carried over into Rebirth with Lex wearing Superman armor. And, if you haven't been reading Williamson's Superman, you should probably get on that to see what Lex is doing. But I agree with you. I really liked what Holt did. And to Zach's point about Gunn being subversive and changing expectations, once again, Lex's theatrical villainous plot had to deal with land. Except he kind of flipped the switch, and the land wasn't really his objective. That was the means to an end for his real objective, which was killing Superman. And I like businessman Lex. I mean, I like mad scientist Lex too. And I thought that they did a good job of blending in, like the genius inventor with, the kind of businessman aspect, and him having his whole team and calling out the attacks, and the way he delivered his lines at the end when he was just whatever the number was like A7 or whatever, just repeating it over and over. And like he put a lot of vitriol into, you know, his delivery. And I forget who said it, if it was on Facebook or a review, and the killing of the falafel vendor, like how someone said it was out of place for this movie. But I feel like it totally did serve like a purpose, because it needed to be something abrupt and shocking to shake Metamorpho out of, you know, what he was going through. Like he was already beaten mentally, where he was imprisoned and had his son across the way, but like that was the moment that let him know what he was dealing with. And like, where do we go from here going forward with Lex, because he just killed a guy randomly in cold blood. Every other time we've seen Lex do something, typically, like in the comics, it's, oh, we know Lex is behind this, but we can't prove it. And now we have all those witnesses. You got the lady in the pink dress, the guy on the other side, Superman, like everyone saw him kill this guy point blank. And he doesn't have an alibi for that at this point.
Well, and what a contrast to illustrate just how little empathy, compassion, and care Lex Luthor has for people. You know, someone who doesn't mean anything to him. It means nothing for him to play Russian roulette with someone that Superman has an affinity for. Like, it's one thing to just like, oh, I just kind of assumed that, you know, I thought that would take a little longer. That's his only observation after he pulls the decisive trigger, right? And it's such an excellent way to like, if you didn't get the point by then that Lex Luthor does not care about people insofar as how useful they are to him, then you got it by that point. If you know, shoving his girlfriend into a closet and yelling at her and screaming at her like she's nothing and just stupid and get out of my face didn't communicate it well enough, and maybe it didn't for some people, his just utter disdain for anybody beneath him should be well communicated by the time he kills that poor man. And the reactions, rather the lack of reaction on Lex's part, and the rather visceral reaction the understandably visceral reaction that Superman had, as well as Metamorpho. I mean, what better contrast exists to illustrate that difference?
Thank Rao.
Lex sucks. You know, I mean, but I mean, I don't understand this surprise from Nicholas Hoult. I mean, as soon as he was cast, I just kind of, to me, that was the moment that the cast overall leveled up. Corin Sweat was an unknown element to me. I certainly hoped for the best, and you know, just in terms of his look, he certainly looked like the way most people conceive of Superman to look. But Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was when I knew that they're probably going to be going a little bit deeper into what makes this guy actually tick as a legitimate villainous presence for the most powerful being on the planet. What makes this guy stand to the level of someone as powerful as Superman? Nicholas Hoult helped show us with that screenplay written by James Gunn. And I wasn't surprised that he knocked it out of the park. As soon as he was cast, I was very confident. That was probably the casting I was most confident in until they announced Rachel Brosnahan.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't really come as a surprise because, I mean, how often have you heard you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain? And he was already
over the past 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah. He's already been the Beast for one universe. He didn't get cast as the Batman, didn't get cast as Superman. So like, that's his villain origin story right there, is rejection. And now he's Lex Luthor, which perfectly ties in with Lex's whole arc of feeling rejected. Not to say that Nicholas Hoult feels this way in real life, but like, something had to stick for him as an actor. Like someone had to put him in something to let him just, go off the hook. And I don't know Corn Sweat well enough to know if he could have pulled off Holt's role as Lex, with the same verve that he had,
Yeah. No, I mean, I really do feel like it's such a great emphasis on the presence of Lex, the way that he's written and the way that he's performed over the course of the movie. All it does is serve to bolster the heroism of Superman and why he is a symbol of aspirational heroism. It's precisely because of the adversity that he has to overcome at the hands of Lex Luthor. Lex throws absolutely everything that he possibly can with the wide array of resources that he has, and Superman just keeps coming. He doesn't stop. He feels a sense of responsibility. He feels a sense of belonging. He feels a sense of care. All of that stuff ultimately culminates to serve as him continuously driving forward until everyone is sufficiently protected. He is an unstoppable force who deceives you because he smiles, but that doesn't diminish the fact that nothing ultimately stops him from getting to where he needs to go. And that's one of the elements that I think far emphasizes Superman's power as a hero. I don't need to constantly be barraged with images of bullets bouncing off of his chest to know that he's a strong hero. He's strong in other ways. And this is the first movie that really emphasizes that strength that I know from the books and that I know you guys know from the books in a way that actually gets the point across. In a way that might stick in people's minds. My sister, who I grew up getting constantly berated for liking heroes in capes, called me the other day and said she was looking forward to seeing Superman. Hell has frozen over, everybody. That's how rare of an occasion that is. And it's this movie that seems to be connecting. And if you are willfully, withdrawing yourself from the fact that it does seem to be connecting in a way that others have not, look up.
And to the chat commentary that's going on about he gets beat up all the time, and I think that just shows, like Chris said in the comments, not Chris Clown, Chris Evans, not Captain America, that it shows his perseverance. Spider-Man gets beat up left and right. It's not because he doesn't have strength, physical strength. He takes these beatings and gets back up again. And we saw that time and time again in this movie of him getting physically and metaphorically knocked down and getting back up because it was the right thing to do. That's where his real strength from. It's not in his biceps. It's in his character. And I think what really resonated for me for this, and I've had a hard time finding like my perfect Superman movie. The Christopher Reeve ones weren't necessarily my favorite when I was a little kid, and I came to appreciate him more during like when Smallville was on the air and came to love him through that. But that wasn't my ideal of Superman. And we've talked about it on other shows of how I feel about the character and what versions I'm more drawn to. And Henry Cavill had some of that, but there was a lot of other baggage as well. But it was hard to connect to him as a character on a personal level. And not that you have to have that with every character, but of what I like from this character, that's of what I want to see. And what Corn Sweat did here was he had some of that golly shucks that Christopher Reeve was known for, and he blended it with like this. He had this like light touch and gave us more insight to who this character is as a human being. Like we saw him get frustrated. We saw him, be happy and dealing with things like having a dog that wasn't listening or behaving. Like, I can never picture Christopher Reeve being like, dude, like that just wouldn't be something that version of the character would say. But, here we get this relatability factor that we haven't seen on the big screen in a while, because I think one of the things that Gunn was doing here was disassociating from the godlike narrative that we've been seeing since, and I mean, Snyder really leans into it, but that's not to say that he originated it, because it was present in the Donner movies. It's present in Superman Returns when he falls to earth and, in the crucifix shape. And here it's kind of like we're getting back more to the Siegel and Schuster roots of the Moses allegory of being sent away by your parents to escape danger and being taken into a foreign land. And there's a lot of golden age in this Superman as well, of getting angry at, injustice. And we don't get a sense of his Clark being the outsider like you do with Christopher Reeves. And we also get, like I said earlier, this blend of like triangle era people and characterization and modern sensibilities too. And I think like I finally found with this movie, like, it doesn't cover every base. I would have liked more of the Planet staff, would have liked a little bit more Ma and Pa, but you can only do so much in 2 hours. And given all the elements that we had, I think you did a really good job of the pacing and tying it all together to where I've got, like, hands down my favorite Superman movie now that I can't stop thinking about. And I've only seen it twice, and it's only been out for a week, kind of, and not even that. And you can't wait to go see it again, and can't wait to own it, and hopefully get to celebrate this iteration for years to come and get more adventures, because that's really what's next after the stop and start of, are we going to get Man of Steel 2? No, it's BVS. Well, what about after Justice League? No. Well, okay, now we got Black Adam, so now we'll get Man of Steel 2? No. Like, it's been a really long road to get to this point. Like, from 2013 to 2025 to get another solo Superman movie. And now that it's here, I just kind of want to
just don't even say that.
Just want to enjoy it.
Too much time has passed, and they've finally got their act together. Let's live in the now.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I just want to kind of like revel in the audience enjoyment and the embracing that seems to be going on through most quarters. And that's okay, because not everything is going to please everyone. So
yeah, exactly.
There are people that don't like the Dark Knight trilogy, and that's fine. So,
all this page is why the JSA is important in context with the Justice League. I'll let you read it later, but yeah.
Also, everybody, you've got a year to go read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow if you want to see what Kara's like.
Yeah, we will do that once the first trailer gets up and running. So, I mean, for Supergirl, which I'm very excited about. I think this is a great foray into the DCU, and I think this has been, we got little tidbits. I mean, technically, isn't Blue Beetle technically part of this new universe too? I mean, from what we understand,
the movie isn't directly, but the character is going to show up played by the same performer in an animated series. At least that's the way I understand it to be right now. That movie was a part of the DCEU, but it's a spiritual sort of connection.
I could have sworn he said that this movie is the official first film of that.
He said it was like spiritually connected, but canonically speaking, if you want to get really technical and fanboyish and pedantic, the events of that movie didn't happen in the DCU.
Fair enough. Which he kind of does that already with Peacemaker, which it sounds like they're going to an actual different dimension. It seems like, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But Yeah, I can't wait for that. I mean, Vigilante is my favorite DC characters at this point. It's because James Gunn's interpretation is amazing. So yeah, I mean, like I think this is a great first first step into this new universe. And besides Creature Commandos, you know, I'm all in. I mean, Chris knows Creature Commandos was kind of was a little too much for me at points. You know, the whole
There was one part that you were like really.
dude. There's a couple
about.
parts. There's a bunch of like it's overly. I hate to be a prude, but I'm sorry. It's just too much
prude.
It's too much sex stuff, and this I'm just like, why do we need all this? Like, it's like I created this Frankenstein character. I'm gonna fall in love with it and just show me banging it, so that I have Frankenstein walking and be like, "Oh my god!" It's like, why? Why do we need this?
The universe is a cornucopia of competing tones and contradictions, just like it is in comics.
Oh god, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But listen, I love this movie. Chris, you weren't on here, but I totally had forgotten that they filmed it all in IMAX, and I need to see it again in IMAX. I don't know if Fantastic Four was, but I'm gonna have to try to get in there before they do that. So
we're eating good this month, gentlemen. We got FF coming in 10 days. We've got Star Trek Strange New World Season 3 coming on Friday. RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business coming out in a couple of days. Donkey Kong Bonanza coming out in a couple of days. July is a good month, my friends.
We got Peacemaker next month. I mean, it's I mean, and so I need to ask you guys. If you guys can't do it, I'm gonna do it without you. But we've got a comic to read next week. I forgot. Yeah, we do. We have one comic to read. One comic. You don't have to do it. I'll find someone else who can go with me if you need to.
I don't own it anymore.
Yeah, I need to borrow yours.
You know where you can go.
Sure, it's not digital.
You know where you could go, Chris.
I would rather hold it in my hand.
You can come over. Hey, listen, you can come over and read it if you like. I'm not gonna,
Paul, I think you, in keeping with the tradition of what you've been doing, what is your new audience-friendly grade for the movie and your regular grade? Why break tradition at this point?
Well, I mean, it's because this is not technically a part of the countdown, so I don't know if I can really do that.
I mean, the countdown was leading to this.
All right,
this could be someone's first Superman movie.
From a certain point of view, you could argue this is part of the countdown.
All right. You know what? I'll indulge you guys. One second. All right.
Really good interview with Ryan Johnson in The Wrap recently, by the way.
Oh, good. I don't really care, but anyway, I hate Ryan Johnson. Hope he rots in hell. Let's see here.
You need to watch Poker Face, man. That was a great second season.
I'm sure it was. I'll never watch it.
Fantastic. Yeah,
good. Good.
Rage Monkeys. So.
Dude, I don't talk about it or rage on it. I just don't watch it. I don't
talk about it constantly. Are you kidding?
Hey, hold on. Now, I don't talk about it anymore. I don't talk about Ryan Johnson. Is it when people bring him up?
You talk about The Last Jedi, so you are talking about Ryan Johnson.
Not last. I don't talk. I haven't brought The Last Jedi in a long time. I digress.
Dude, like 2 weeks ago on this show, you mentioned it.
Anyway, so next week, if you guys, I'll find someone to go watch if I need to. But I will be reading this and covering this next week. It's good. It's a good bridge. It's a perfect bridge. What can I say? So, all right. So before we head out of here, my new reader friendly or new viewer friendly for Superman 2025 is definitely going to be an 8.3. I think that's a pretty solid. It's not perfect, but it does a great job of getting you in together, introducing lots of fun stuff. My overall rating for Superman at this point, to be honest, I think it could go down 9.0. I love it. It's not perfect, but I think why it's so high is because it's just a movie that I really, really, really liked, and it was fun to watch, and I watched the hell out of it. and I'll
And you
watch the hell out
feel
of it.
nice walking out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. So I mean, it's thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. So yeah. So next week we'll do. If you guys tell me you guys can't find it or can't read it, I'll find other people like Zach.
I'll drive to
on
your
here.
house.
Well, look, drive to my house. Come over. Just come over. I've got like 2 versions of it. I've got like the collected. I have 3. I have the omnibus. I have the original trade. That they did.
I
like
know where you live. That sounds.
I know you know where I live.
Should. I know where you live. I come over your house all the time.
Were you there? Hold on, Chris. Were you there when I bought this? I got this in Ancient Comics.
Probably there then.
You're probably there. Yeah. So I got this, which we still need to go check out the new place, by the way.
Is it up and running?
It's up and running.
Let's go.
I know. I need to.
Weekend. I'm going to the ocean this weekend, but soon.
Yeah, we'll do soon. Anyway, next week, hopefully Javi and Chris can make this. Javi, if you need it, I can tell you where to get it. Anyway, all right.
Let's issue boxes. Get your knee pads.
No. It's still going to waste money if he doesn't want to waste money. I don't blame him. Anyway, man, we've been on here a long time. Everyone knows where to find us.
There's so much to say.
There's a lot to say.
Yeah, the score.
The score's okay, but we've been here all day. I gotta get to bed soon. I get up at 5 a.m.
As soon as the ending song came up, Paul was like, "I'm not sure about this song." And what did I tell you, Paul?
You won me. It won me over. I hum it all the time now. I hum it all the time. All the time. No,
I told him to shut up. That's what I said.
Did I get mad? No. See, people gotta realize sometimes. People gotta realize that sometimes I look more animated and I sound way worse than I really mean to. Chris knows this. Chris knows this about me. Like he's one of my best friends. I feel like I could be like "ma" to Chris because he's my brother.
And I was just throwing it back at you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You couldn't have rained on my parade in that moment if you tried.
Yeah, no. And I think the one thing I'm going to end on, and we'll give Chris the shout out here. Leaving the theater, there was an undeniable positive feeling in the air that, and Chris and I have been to these things together for almost 2 years now, like constantly. We're constantly leaving the theater, and together. At this point, since we've been doing this on the reg, I have never felt this positive energy in a long time.
The closest I feel like it got to was No Way Home, coming out of the theater.
But I would argue that was almost expected, whereas this was not expected. This was kind of like we didn't really know. We already knew the buzz, the rumors, and everyone was excited about that. But there was an uncertainty with this that I think even with the Batman and No Way Home, that this left you with a better overall feeling because of that feel-good vibe at the very end. So
a little more hopeful than No Way Home's ending. I mean, No Way Home had a great ending, but
I love No Way Home too, by the way. Yeah. So, Chris, we've been on here almost 2 hours. You came late, but we've been on this for a while. Why don't you take us home?
Read more comics.
All right, next up. Yeah, go see Superman. And next, what's that?
Be a punk rocker.
Be a punk rocker. Be punk as fuck, as I like to say. That's my saying. Anyway, go next week. We're going to be doing a Superman Fantastic Four crossover, literally. Maybe we'll even up talking. We'll kind of finish up on Superman review a little bit next week too. We'll kind of dovetail into that next week. So, all right, guys. See y'all later.